Yeah.
That's poor planning.
That's what I say. That's a good spread today. It's Berlin, BCB Singapore. So if you're hanging up to there, I'll be there, and I'll show you what's a bar.
Yeah.
A marathon looks like. I'm in London now. So what the fuck? Good timing. Are you starving or not? I've been here just before and I have stocks.
Don't hesitate to sit down. There's some rum waiting for you. If you feel a little bit cold, don't worry. There's some rums that will make you feel very warm.
Alexandre, sorry, it's not cold.
Yeah, I can see that. You know, Don is the master distiller at the distillery at West Indies Rum Distillery, very talented for 22 years. And Don comes to Cognac, you know, and the teams come to, as you know, we're also distillers in Cognac. And the team always makes fun of me when they come to Cognac and they say, man, how can you live in such a cold climate, you know? And so he's proving me, you prove yourself wrong today.
No, I think I've been in Berlin now for 4 days, so I'm getting accustomed to it. Problem will be when I get back home.
So wonderful. Thank you very much to all be here. I don't see quite everybody here, you know, but with the light, but it's really a great pleasure. I don't know how you feel, but it's so great to be back. Of course, it's great to be at the distilleries, but you know, to be back here, seeing everybody here. It's a big family. I think we went to bed a little too late last night, but still, it's an incredible feeling to really see people again and be together as a whole big family. That's wonderful and that's great. So I'm really excited to do this presentation with Don. We've known each other for many years. We got married, really, not the two of us, but the two teams. The Maison Ferrand and West Indies Rum Distillery. I look at this like that because the two teams are working together. We love the techniques of distilling, and we wanted to share with you a bit like a family reunion to say this is what's happening at West Indies Rum Distillery. This is a distillery that I'm going to show you. It's a distillery by the beach in Barbados, and it's a distillery I've been going to for 25 years. And it's a distillery that's actually, believe it or not, distills 85% of Barbados rum, but it's until recently was not really known. Why is that? Because this distillery was making rum for others, including other brands, you know, in Barbados. And so, you know, and it's been like this since 1893. There was even at one point an understanding in the island that was the distillery. But what's really important about this distillery, and I found fascinating, and I'll show you a lot of this, we will show you a lot of little secrets. You're going to taste today a rum that's distilled in a still that there's only one left from the 19th century called the Charge still, and there's only one left in the world of that specific still. So you're going to really taste history today. What I found, you know, really interesting about the distillery is, and I will talk about that later, I think that every distillery has a soul, has a DNA. And when you see somebody crossing that soul, then things feel wrong. This distillery, we'll come back to it later, was established by a crazy guy, actually German, George States, and he was a very talented distiller, and his dream was he left to the Caribbean, became Caribbean citizen, was to make the best rum in the world, and he had like that brainchild and created this distillery for the reasons we're going to be discussing. And because this guy he has patents, there's a column with his name, if you look on internet, and this distillery since then has attracted people like Don. They're like super smart, and I don't want him to feel embarrassed, but very technical, and this district attracts this type of people. So imagine me, the little redneck from Cognac, you know, going to the Caribbeans, purchasing barrels and meeting these people with incredible knowledge about rum making. It was wonderful. And the way to be continuing this adventure together, and this is what we're going to be sharing with you today. So Don Ben, Master Distiller at West Indies Rum Distillery, you know, for 22 years. I know he doesn't look it. And I am, ladies and gentlemen, Alexandre Gabriel, Master Blender at Maison Ferrand at the Plantation Rum. So thank you for being here.
So hello again, and it's a pleasure for me to be here. My first trip to Berlin and to BCB Berlin. I'm enjoying myself so far. Hopefully I can take back some wonderful spirits besides rum to Barbados to sample. But if I don't, I'll try to come back again to see if I can keep doing it year after year. And the thing for me is to try to give you an essence of what we do in Barbados, to let you know about the people, the island. But the best thing for you to do is actually come and visit. So if you find you can't understand my accent or I don't speak long enough, hop on a plane. I think there's a direct flight from Frankfurt to Bridgetown, Barbados, and spend as much time there, come to the distillery and have fun. So I'm sure I'll have other chances to tell you more about the distillery, so I'll let Alexander get back to it.
Wonderful, thank you, Don. It's it's always a great experience. So I just wanted to recap a little bit about our mission at the Plantation Rum and West Indies Rum Distillery. It's true to get cane. You know, we have to remember rum is made with cane, whether it is sugarcane juice, you know, sugar syrup, sugarcane syrup, or molasses, or actually, if you believe Dave Wondrich, and I do believe him, you know, in the old days, 18th century, 19th century, using also the foam that, you know, that forms on the top of the sugar making process. That is a very specific element of rum making. I tasted the rum in London, actually, that was from St. Croix, late 1800s, was it Dave and another friends, and that was made by, you know, using these elements, the protein that raises and creates a very interesting thing. So it's going to be something we're going to be looking at the near future, and Don knows what I'm talking about. So it's all about the cane, the transparency, we believe, and you know, we actually fight for this. We think that rum has such an incredible heritage. We're going to be talking about this. We're going to show you old documents and old stills and that heritage rum has, and that level of freedom rum has, is something we think should be preserved. That's the DNA of rum, and there's no other spirit like it. But it comes with a price. The price to it is honesty and transparency. And so, you know, as you see with our bottles, whether it is Plantation Rum or States, we put everything on the label. We think that sharing what we do and being very open is very important, so you can be true to what we think is the real DNA of rum. It's not as easy as you think, because when I speak with Don and the team and says, we should talk about this, and they're like, yeah, but you know, this is our little secret, right? And it goes, right? And in Jamaica, because, you know, West Indies Rum Distillery also owns the third national rum of Jamaica, you know, it's even like, no way, you know?
Well, okay, let me just be clear. It is challenging to make rum, but it's not hard to make rum. But the reason I say we can't share everything is because the idea is to get you to come back again. So if I tell you everything now, I mean, the mystique is all gone, so. It's a challenging business. We have fun every day, but it is not something that I think, like the average bartender, you give me a year with one of you guys, I can turn you into a distiller. I believe that. You know, once you have the love for it and basic understanding, you know how water boils, hey, simple after that.
Kind of. So, but that's interesting. I can give you an example and a little secret we do. And we had agreed we can talk about this. And because I have a lot of respect, and you know, we decide things together. You know, West Indies rum in the old days, and sometimes does fermentation. Look, we're right next to the sea, using a little seawater. We have that in our archives. And you know, I remember calling Dave Warner and said, I found this, you know, Dave, what do you think? And Dave's like, I know actually. I read stuff about Jamaica and Barbados doing this. And I said, we should talk about this. And the guy says, yeah, but it's kind of our little, you know. And then we start talking, and we got some other guy says, no way, this is crazy to do that. And I'm like, you see, we should keep it secret. And so, but we love sharing this, and that's why we're going to be doing today, all right? Also, we talked about that, respect the technical history of rum, the diversity of methods. We will be talking about this. You'll taste very unique rums about that. A framework that allows research and creativity. If you come to see us at West Indies Rum Distillery, you see rum is alive. You know, we are building on the knowledge that we have from the past. We're trying to find the Shakespeares or the Molières or rum making guys that were making, or ladies, beautiful things in the past, but learn from them to make beautiful rums today. And of course, you know, so that's why we say it's something that's very important to keep alive. Just a little review also about the distillery you see on the bottom left. West Indies Rum Distillery, long time ago, was invited by the government of Jamaica to take shares into a company called National Rum of Jamaica. National Rum Jamaica was a company created by Jamaican government to save 3 of the iconic distilleries when rum was difficult. Long Pond, as you can see at the top, thank you, the 2 pictures there. Long Pond, beautiful distillery, northern style of rum in Trilwani, you know, province. And then you have, you know, of course, Clarendon Distillery. You see here with Flovia and the master distiller at Clarendon. And so when the government of Jamaica was looking for technical partners, they invited West Indies Rum Distillery and Demerara Distillers. So as a matter of fact, we are involved and we're working in Jamaica, whether it's Don or Andrew or myself, quite often, you know, to making rum there or talking with the team or working with the team there. So we'll talk more about the team there. Real quickly, you know, the way rum is aged. Rum has been double-aged since rum exists, and we'll show you a little document showing to that is part of the distillery heritage, where rum is first aged in the Caribbean, then shipped at sea, where you'll see later one of the pictures, with dynamic aging and age further at the point of destination. Why people did that in the old days? Necessity. In the old days, shipment was expensive. People didn't ship empty bottles to the Caribbean and then back, right? People ship the barrels, for the environment's also better, and bottle, and then so they happen to age longer at the point of destination. And they saw the tools, I'm trained as a master blender, the tools of aging in the Caribbean and aging at sea, dynamic aging and at the point of destination is part of the heritage of this distillery, but also about a lot of other rum making. And of course you have other expressions of tropical aging, which is simply age in the point of origin, and West Indies Rum Distillery does both. This is, we'll talk about that later. The distillery has a room called the Vault. It's a locked room where we have documents, it's incredible, where documents have been stored since 1893. So we know how people were making rum, you know, at this distillery 50, 60, 70 years ago. And we'll show you some of these documents. This is, we have a person who works with us, Andrew, who's the general manager at the distiller, and he usually spends his weekend surfing. He lives in the middle of the island, so he's always close to the nicest, you know, wave that is going to be. And he spends one of these 2 days, he doesn't surf, he does research from old documents. As you can see here in this document, it shows that the distillery was aging both at West Indies Rum Distillery and in London for creating different effects of style and working. And remember, one of the tools of a master blender. So that's the heritage of the distillery as well. As you can see, 1934. So that was also evidences of this. The distillery, quickly, I think already touched on this, was funded by George States, the guy on the top right. You can see him here, you know, in this picture. This is a wooden vat, you know, one of the very special vats that they did. The picture done is like mid 1940s at the bottom, because you don't you see the building of the Blair still.
Could you go back one slide?
Of course.
Okay, so with this picture you can see this section over here. Let me come on the other side. This section is actually what you see in the next photo. And this was mid-40s. As the distillery grew, we had to obviously go with a taller section and a taller section. So this middle section is around the mid-70s, and the tallest section is around the mid-90s. So that's how we would have grown over time as capacity was upgraded. We started with a small column still. This one has a larger John Doerr still, and this is our largest unit at the moment. I can't see the pot still area, but it is over to the immediate right of the photo. So we have a number of stills. There are about 7 stills at the distillery, any one of which can be running at any given time. All of our staff are well trained. So you can see this section is the first one that I showed you in the photo just a minute ago.
And you can see here, this section is when you had the first distillation. When you come, you'll see we call it pot still alley, where you have like pot stills from the 19th century, right? So this is a part.
Yeah, so this is just showing you the top of our aging warehouse right now, our 2 warehouses here. And this has actually been completely filled with solar panels. So at the moment, 20% of our capacity is satisfied by solar energy. And the goal is by 2030 to be completely carbon neutral. So there's a plan to build more warehouses, install more solar panels. We have a project going on right now that the plan is to satisfy all of the steam requirements of the still from our waste, from our vinasse. That will also provide energy to the country in the form of electricity. So we are trying our best to be good social and environmental partners with the people of Barbados, so we respect the community. Obviously, that goes far back from just waste disposal. That's about where the cane comes from in the first place. So all of the local molasses is dedicated to plantation rum, but we are ensuring that even when we have to source molasses outside of Barbados, it is done in a responsible, sustainable way. So we are the first distillery in the Caribbean to become Bon Sucro certified, and we expect, we're not going to demand it, but we expect the other distilleries to follow suit, because that would be a big step forward for the Caribbean industry, which has lagged behind in social and environmental issues for a while. I mean, we do it responsibly, but we know we can do a lot more. So we're very proud of that. That only occurred this year. It was a quite intense process to become Bon Sucro certified. So we will try to be sure that we communicate that to everyone wherever possible. We all know it's COVID. Barbados has had a tough time with COVID from both a health and an economical point of view. So right now, rum is the #1 export from Barbados. And I mean, whatever you guys can do to help not just Barbados, but the Caribbean to recover from COVID, we will greatly appreciate it. So please keep, loving the products, encouraging your consumers to drink more. On the health,
Drink good rum.
Responsibly, of course, responsibly. Health-wise, as I said, COVID in Barbados is still at that stage. It's probably, we're going through a wave right now. It's the largest wave we've experienced so far. Not a lot of deaths compared to the developed world. We're at about 98 people have died so far. But that's a big issue for us. We're a very small island. 430 square kilometers. I'm not sure what like say Berlin, what's the size of Berlin? Does anyone know?
Bigger than Barbados.
Bigger than Barbados, okay. And the population is only 270,000. So you can imagine it's a very small dot on the globe. Not a lot of people, so anyone contracting COVID or dying from COVID is big news. So our distillery has done a partnership with the government. We've decided to adjust our process to be able to supply all of the alcohol required for health reasons. And so far, we've done the equivalent of about 1 million hand sanitizer bottles, and we are not going to stop until COVID is no longer an issue for us in Barbados. So once the health is good, the economy can be good, and we can get back to enjoying producing rum and for you guys to visit and have a good time in Barbados as well.
Thank you, Don. Thank you. And for the ones who don't know, Bon Sucro is an organization that makes sure that the people in the producing sugar and distilling process, that the people who are involved in this process are treated fairly. So that's an organization does that, and the team wanted, and we all decided that would be great to, as a distillery, to be called Bon Sucro chain of custody, so to be part of that chain where people are treated fairly. So Bon Sucro products, it's similar to something like fair trade. You have another one called Proterra. It's a similar system, and Don, who takes care of all the procurement and the molasses, always makes sure for that. And if it's not, it's in the process to be in the distillery is already. Thank you, Don. We're going to be tasting some rum. So on the bottom left, you have the 20th anniversary, the XO from Plantation. Just want to tell you a little bit of the story of this product. This is actually the only plantation that I didn't blend myself. That I actually didn't know anything about. I've been doing this job for 32 years. And when it was my 20th anniversary as a master blender, the team, we like to party. We work hard, but we do parties at Maison Ferrand at West Indies Rum. And the team surprised me. I saw, by the way, like a year before, 6 months before, some of my favorite rums like kind of disappearing, you know? And I know the team is honest, and they say, ah yeah, the team was kind of leaking, we had to transfer it. I'm like, really? That was okay. And then, you know, and then I was thinking something was up, you know, and I know the team, I trust them so much. And then at the party, they come up with this beautiful rum, using old Barbados rum and using actually 20 types of different woods, you know, the way the charring, the toasting. Remember, the guys working, we work with us are really skillful, and they came up with this rum that I thought was really interesting. It was both easy access, but also as many layered. If you really know, you know, you can see the kind of differentiates what was done there. So I thought it was so great. I decided we launched it. So that was really 12 years ago, if you think about it, and that we launched that product. So very Bajan in the sense that Barbadian, in a sense that in Barbados, the Barbados people are like the French. We don't throw anything away. You know, we know that at the distillery. You know, in France, you have an old church, you need a new one, you need a bigger one, you keep the little one in case you need a little church. Well, in Barbados, and I don't know, you know, it's really, in USA, you know, you get rid of the little church and you build a big one, right? And my wife's American, I can speak freely. And, you know, Barbados is the same way. So, and we're blessed with that, because you go to the distillery and you see these old stills that are like, we're making rum 100 years ago, 120 years ago, and they're still there. So there's one still that Don will tell us about later, called the Old Greg. It used to be called the Greg Farm, now it could become old. And so it's a still that was built in 1850, it's still making rum. And actually some of this rum is in your glass today. And so that's what it is. It's a blend of colon and pot. And because if you look at the history of rum, some islands went for modernity. When colon was invented, they say, forget about the pot still. It's much faster, much more affordable to use a colon. Let's get rid of the pot still and get the colon still. In Jamaica, they went kind of the other way. They said, no, real rum is pot still, right? Otherwise, they called it silent spirits. And Barbados, I don't think it was very Bajan. Barbados really culture about, you know, the country about education, culture. It's like, you know what? This new colon thing is interesting. We're going to buy one. But we're going to keep the pot stills because I think it's great too. And we're going to really blend and create and the style was really created, which is about balance and elegance and so on. That's what we try to showcase here. So elements of spice, chocolate notes, you know, almost like gingerbread. You got some, of course, elements of the American oak, you know, like a little coconuts feel if you have from the whiskey, like tone of the wood. Then it's shipped over to France with dynamic aging, you know, in the barrel. The distillery is wonderful. The team know how to load the container with barrels perfectly. And then it's transferred into a cognac barrel in France. So think about the spice notes that you get from French oak as opposed to American oak, which gives more structure, kind of a bone structure in terms of the tannins and the spice elements as well. And because it's old, you got this long finish on your palate. So that's the actual plantation and the story about this rum. Don, if you want to tell us about the team a little bit here, and then we'll talk about the...
Sorry, everyone has tasted the rum? Oh, sorry. Okay, yeah, I wasn't sure about it.
Yeah, I thought you guys jumped on it, so I was giving you the feeling. So taste it, and what happens with the rum here, the goal is if you have a little sip, you know rum is old and it's got when it lasts on your palate. We call that the finish or la tenue en bouche. And so that's something where it blossoms out, and that's the idea. The balance with the pot and the colon, again, it's you don't have, later we'll taste at the end a highest rum that's really pot, really extracted. Here is to find elegance and balance between the fruit notes, and also Barbados does such a beautiful job with this, because their rums you will see in the cultures of rum. If you remember this, you actually will be able to create a map in your head. There's islands that tend to go toward the fruit notes, extra, you know, in the way fermentation is done. Think Jamaica, you know, ripe fruit notes, true Jamaican rum, or more on the chocolate notes, what we call the higher alcohol. Think about like a Port Moran, for example, stills from Demerara, you know, where you got these elements of higher alcohol. So, and then if you know there's two elements, then you can see everybody being there. And what's Barbados is like, Yeah, we want both, but we take a little bit of these fruit elements and so on in a very delicate way, and we go with this chocolate, like raw chocolate, spicy gingerbread, the notes there, and get the two together. And then you got guys like, you know, Fiji style's a bit different, where they kind of take the two and bring up the volume up on both fronts. And here it's about that elegance and that finesse and how it longs on the palate. And that's why also, when you make a drink with Barbados rum, it will always create a great feeling, comfortable effect, because you have all these elements there in the background that are going to be working for you, for sure. You know, you like it?
Yeah, and to add to that, you'd be surprised in Barbados, rum is not the go-to drink for people when they go out at night or they're spending time. It's now becoming more of a recognizable, I want to get rum, because of the efforts you guys have done, making it more prominent. But cognac, whiskey, wines, gin, those are the bigger sellers in Barbados. I think maybe because the brand image and the name of the brands are a lot more pushed on social media and on TV. So when I have to introduce some of even my friends to rum, I would use that Plantation Etso. It's very drinkable, very smooth. They're not sort of pushed away from the rum with the very first experience. And then they're willing to come back and say, well, okay, I'll try another one. I'll try something that's a bit more full-bodied, or something that's a bit funkier. So I find it's a great lead-in, as it's a very complex product. You know, you keep nosing it and you're like, okay, I understand this. But it is a good rum to introduce people to rum for the very first time.
We always say, you know, the grass is always greener, like you are in France, and people are like rediscovering cognac just now, you know, kind of thing. And then in Barbados, you got this whole rediscovery. That's a wonderful thing.
Right, so a bit about the Barbados team. I don't think everyone is in the picture. I wouldn't try to call out the names, but there are about 80 people at the distillery who make rum every day. Obviously, some people are in different roles, the laboratory, engineering, but the majority of the people actually are involved in the process, the fermentation, the stills, the aging program. So this picture was taken in one of our aging bonds, and we didn't force them to smile. They love coming to work every day. It's as I said, it's a challenging job, but it's quite enjoyable. We have fun, great fun every day. I get to work 7 days a week, believe it or not. I'm a family guy, but my family knows making rum is quite an intense type of job. So if you remember any of the faces when you come to Barbados, you know, just say hi to each one of them. They are quite, how should I say this? The news about how much rum is loved is now getting back home to Barbados. So they're like telling me, Don, what's the feel like in other countries you've visited? Are people like enjoying the rum we make? So they like to know that what they do is appreciated by whoever's consuming it. So that's me. And Andrew, I think you heard the name before. He's our resident historian. He's the head of the company as well. So he's the one doing all of the research, looking through the archives, even when he's not surfing. Just to pick out a few faces, you're gonna see this guy, this lady. I don't see Dario. Okay, well, when we go to another slide, I'll show you I'll focus more on some of the key staff at the distillery. But, you know, happy smiling faces, bright colors. This is my typical work shirt. So we don't get to wear brown or beige. We try to spice it up by being colorful.
Don, you want to tell us a little bit about the guys here? Digger, for example, and you got Dario right in the middle.
Yeah, so I'll start on your left. As I said, Andrew, he's the head of company and our historian. Digger, he's an interesting character. When I joined the distillery in 1998, he was already there. And he's now been working there for about 40 odd years. And the interesting thing is his father was also working at the distillery for 40 plus years. So 2 generations from one family, their entire life, almost 100 years at the distillery. Digger is still working. He's the one that really taught me how to use the Vulcan and some of the other pots. Dario is very important for us. He's only been with the company for 5 years. Very, very bright, intelligent guy, but he's in charge of all of our yeast program and our fermentation. So I have to work closely with him every day, because as a distiller, I need to understand, okay, what's coming to the still. I need to know ester levels, I need to know ABV concentration, so it's quite important for us to work closely together. But he supervises the yeast, he calls them his babies, and they do the job for us. Michael, another important guy. He's not one to smile very much. He's an engineer, but if it's not working, he's the one we call, and he has to get out of bed at night. Sometimes I join him and we try to get things going again. And most important person in the picture, Stacey Ann, because that's where the money sits. So we can do whatever we want. If there's no money, Stacey Ann is not going to let us do it anymore. So that's the main team at the distillery. And I think the next slide, okay. These are the ladies. I can't say they're young. They don't like me to call them young, but they're not as old as I am. Terry, over here on your left, she's in charge of our quality control. So all of the blend, the research and development at West Indies rum, Terry supervises that, and she's leading a team. There's a fifth person not on here, but this is Gabrielle, Micah, and Melissa. And Melissa's been with the company for almost 20 years, Micah and Gabrielle within the last 5 years, but all very enthusiastic about what they do, very knowledgeable. Melissa has a wonderful nose. You wouldn't believe it. I can go into the lab and smell, and I'm like, sorry, Melissa, I'm not getting it. And she said, no, go again. Draw deeper, there's something there, you can detect it. And invariably, she's usually right. So I learned to listen to Melissa, Dario fermentation, Terry product development, Melissa on the nose, and I have a great team working with me.
And Don, as you know, some of you may know, I'm a master blender. And in France, it's like a French kitchen, the chef, and then you got the sous chef. It's very structured, like a pyramid. In Barbados, not at all, and I've learned so much from this team. If you work at the distillery, if you're on a forklift, you can be one of the taster. Your nose is tested, and then you grow to it, and you can be there. And when you're at the distillery, when you visit, sometimes in a meeting, it's almost annoying because it says a sensory, call. So, you have to go, and if you're willing and your nose is to the level, whatever you do, if you're on your forklift, you let it go, you go to the lab, you're under the management of the ladies here, and you're going to be testing, because at distilling, whatever goes through the hands of the team of Dawn, every 4 hours, there's a chromatography and an analysis on the nose. And it's a very flat structure. It's about talents, not about hierarchy or what's your height on the totem pole. And I thought that was so great. So I brought back this to Cognac. So now we got the team involved, so we get to taste together. And it's wonderful. And I will always remember, it was actually, I forgot it was Gabriel or Terry. At one point they say, Alexander, you're part of sensory, right? You want to be part? She says, oh, you're a master blender, you don't need to go through the test. I'm like, oh no, I think I should do the test. And I'm thinking, then what if I fail that test,
If you fail, you answer to Melissa.
So luckily I passed, but we do, and then so, this is what we want, we decide as a master blender, master distiller, this is what we want to achieve in taste profile. This is something we work, we're going to show you some of the distillates after that. And then, but this team is making sure that every 4 hours we're on that button, and if we're not, I could be traveling somewhere. I remember I was in Mexico making pechuga actually with my son and having fun. And then just for fun, by the way, there's no projects with that. It's just visiting some friends and making, and because my son wants to join us, so he's learning different things. And I remember was actually Andrew calling and says, we think we're off by, but it was so little, didn't show in the chromatography and stuff. And so they're very serious about this, and I think it's wonderful. Real quickly, because the time is running real quick. You see here on the right, this is a door called the vault. The vault is a door that you see here on the back as well, that has been sheltering documents. You see one of the documents I hold here is from 1903, for example. Here, everything that has happened in distillery is recorded. When we decided, 1930s, the people arguing, should we age rum in barrels? And some people say, it's impure. Wood, for oak from Europe and stuff should be only to carry rum. Now we think it's so obvious, right? And the distillery wins and says, we're gonna age rum. So they create their own cooperage. So there's a little cooperage with equipment from Buffalo, New York that we still have, where the barrels were fixed and used. That's all documented there. So we used a lot of these archives. We have few cubic meters of archives going back to 1993 about rum making. So inspiring, again, about doing a lot of things that we're showing you today. So one of the elements we did, we have a still called the one I told you about, right? The Old Greg. But the Old Greg is old. So it starts to be a little more fragile. So we're gonna have to do something, but we want to keep it forever. So what you do when it still becomes older, you use it for the second distillation, not for the first one. The first distillation is the most demanding to the copper by thinning the copper. So we said, we're going to make a new still, but we're going to make a new stills from our archives, stills that we used to have before. So it's like, we're like kids going in a candy store, getting out, you see there some of the archives. These are Xerox, obviously, so we can draw on them. We used to have that still, we used to have that still. What would be great about this one? So we did, I don't know why it was me, but we did that together. This is a little drawing about
you're
the still.
You're the best person to draw at.
Well, when you look at the drawing, it's arguable, right? And when you look at this, so we drew the still that we wanted, and we have a gentleman called David Pym, who is the owner of Jandor Distilling Equipment, wonderful, very storied coppersmith. And I can show you, this is the team here. We have a team in Cognac, Don knows them. You have a guy called here, Gaylor. You see these guys that do everything by hand. There's some of the coppersmiths that still do their, the coppersmiths by hand, by knocking on them. We're together with them just last week. You can see they do the models there. David Pym, an old gentleman who's incredible, from a lot of very storied still that he made. You can find St. Lucia, you can find in Jamaica, in Peru, in you know, Fiji. He's the guy who built these stills in his young years, so he's the one who corrects the drawing. And this is the baby, guys. This is the baby that was done. And this is in Cognac with the guys finishing the stills. You see Gaylor in the middle, really the guy who's incredible. And these guys built the still. And this is the still in Barbados now with the team, you know, showing you the still.
Yeah, this was actually during the phase of installing. So again, Michael there, no smile, and all of the engineers trying to smile hard, but they just don't know how to do it. But yeah, it's a small still. When you think about it, 2,000 liters still. And the idea is for us to really get back to that idea of moving single batches and multiple single batches to make one product. So we do plan to get a larger one. Hint, hint, Alexandre.
It's coming.
It's coming, okay, right. And we will create several more of similar designs for you to see. So this rum that you're tasting now, as I said, the first one was more a product in its own right. I use it to introduce people to rum. But these other three more are tasting or blending elements. You're not really going to see these on their own in a bottle at the moment. But when you put them together, they can make some wonderful products. So what you're seeing here is a product from this hot pot. It only started in December 2020. And so it's a very young age at the moment. It is in the barrel, so we're expecting it to mature even more. So what you're sampling now is only about 8 to 9 months old, but it has some more time to go.
You want to tell us the proof? You know, it's actually foolproof from the still.
This is proof directly from the barrel. We normally age at 65% ABV, so this is barrel proof at the moment. We can produce higher strength on the hot pot, but it would require a triple distillation. And we don't want to go that road all the time. It becomes very intensive to do a rum every day, triple distilled.
So you like it? You see what we're saying? And as Don was saying, for a master blender, this is quite a concentrated element, but a lot of fruit forward, some elements of chocolate again, very Barbadian, but here you have 100% pot still. And that's the one that's going to be doing the heavy lifting for decades for the old Greg now that can retire to that second step of the distillation that you've seen before. Elements, so you see that. And we wanted to show you here elements that are really like you would taste if you visit the distillery. Now Don is going to tell you about something that when you visit doesn't look like much. It's like a big tube. And I remember visiting my first time with Red Harris, you know, the distillery, and I see this and say, Don, this is Red, this is a charge still. Like, I don't know if you know charge stills or actually they're called chamber stills. If you are like rye whiskey fanatics, you can see that in the early 1800s from the East Coast, that's what they used. And with Prohibition, you know, a lot of guys from the Caribbeans went to America, and it was like an open bar because they could get equipment. It was a garage sale, and this one was built in the 19th century and made its way to Barbados and has been distilling for a while. So Don is going to tell you a little bit about that still. I remember it called the Charge Still.
Okay, so before we move on to that, this is Alexander doing his usual thing. You guys know him very well, I imagine. He's quite the educator. He loves to show you and demonstrate how to get things done. The funny side of this one is that this was him trying to tell us, okay, or remember, how should I operate the Vulcan? We had to tell him first
It's true.
how to operate the Vulcan, so we're now giving him the test to see if he remembered how to operate the Vulcan. That test he hasn't quite passed yet, but he'll come back for the next round another time. So myself, Dario, and Digger initially were the only persons at the distillery who can operate this still. When I came there in 1998, it was operating. We stopped it in about 2002 because it needed repairs. And we restarted it again in 2018. So for a long time, not many people at the distillery even knew about it. They would walk past this thing every day, had no idea what it did. So just to describe it, this red section is one chamber, that's the heating chamber. There's another chamber here, but it's actually made up of these two sections. That's the distilling chamber.
You want me to show this?
Yeah, okay, this is a lot better. So heating chamber, distilling chamber, and below the level of the floor there's one more chamber. That's the boiling or the heating, where the boil up the energy for heating comes from. So this schematic gives it some more context internally. This is not an exact replica of what we do or what is at West Indies rum, but it helps to describe it. So the bottom chamber is dunder that you're ready to boil. Distilling here is your wash that has in alcohol and other flavor elements that you're ready to distill. And you have a new batch at the top that's ready to be heated. So you apply the heat to the dunder chamber. And for the dunder, there's still elements of flavor that will come through into the middle chamber to assist with the flavor profile. So we boil, it comes through a series of pipes that are on the inside, it bubbles into the liquid. That then distills off and rises through the top chamber, it heats the top chamber, and goes through, in our case, there's this one isn't there, but there's actually a device, an air-cooled rectifier that we use to allow some level of reflux, and that actually adds a unique character and the ability to get a higher strength, a higher proof from just a single run. Now, for us, that one is actually part of the original 1893 still. So this entire unit is made up of a Vulcan still and a piece of the historic still at the distillery, the very first still that was there. This liquid, once it refluxes, comes back into the middle chamber, and the rest of it comes off as alcohol that we can collect. So it's a very simple operation, but that's only one charge. That takes about 4 hours. The trick now is to, when you've exhausted the alcohol here and the flavor elements are finished, you want to move this one down, but obviously you have to empty the bottom first. So the first step is to empty the bottom. You bring this, which is now your dunder, to the bottom chamber. You bring the top to the middle, and you put a fresh one in at the top. So again, you start the cycle all over again. So you're heating here, you're boiling, you're distilling, you're heating, your cool rectifier, alcohol flow, collection, and storage. And over the course of the day, we do that cycle 5 times. And that's how basically you end up with a product. I think you have it on the table, the Vulcan product here. Now this one has a bit more character than the hot pot, but again, it's not a product in its own right. We use it very much as a flavor component, a blending element into other blends. Historically at the distillery, when I first joined, we would actually take the product from this and then run it through the Greg still. There were other times we would do a double distillation of that into the Vulcan, but it's a very hard still to maintain because the wash is very aggressive. The copper is not as thick as on other pot stills. Now you have to remember, this is not quite a pot, but it operates like a pot, but it's not quite a column either. So it's sort of somewhere between a typical pot still and what you would recognize as a column still. We don't run it very often right now. As I said, we have to take very good care of it, so we're trying to think, okay, should we have another one, a replica made? Should we try to do a lot of repairs? tell me what you think about that product. As I said, we don't drink it on its own just like that, but it was just to be able to show you. You've heard about the Vulcan, you now have a chance to taste what product is made from it.
So Don, when you say we use it 5 runs during the day, 1 run is what you drink, and obviously we do 5 times the same run of production, right? It's not run 5 times to have that taste in your glass, just to clarify.
Well, yes and no. You could take each unique run on its own, but what we find is over the course of the run, the flavor profile actually changes. So we've had experiences where we've separated each batch and had 5 distinct notes, nose and taste. We normally blend them all together to give that final profile.
Yeah.
But there's flexibility to get in there and at any stage and isolate a particular batch or a particular point in time and store that separately.
Yeah, what I was mentioning, we don't do 5 runs, to have the final products. You know what I'm saying?
Oh no!
It's
not 5 runs. Yeah,
it's a
whole day distillation, but we repeat the same thing 5 times. Not that we take the liquid back in 5 times.
So you like it? You see how full-bodied it is? I was actually purchased to make Navy rum. When Barbados was a great share of Navy rum, so you got these really full-bodied. I think we're going to do it on its own. I think it's a beast. It's a big rum. Very full-bodied, but that's what it's about. Of course, it's asking for aging and it's being aged already, but we've got barrels that we put aside, and we'll see what happens with this. Don, you got the old Greg here.
Yeah. So quickly, I know time is not on our side, so. This is the Greg farm that you heard so much about. It basically is at the heart of practically any any rum that comes out of West Indies rum. You will have an element of this in it. It's our workhorse pot still. Generally, you can tell by the rivets how old the pot is, whether it's hand beaten, whether they're uniformed, whether they are machine formed, or even if there's no rivets. Modern pot stills tend to be more welded together, and people may put a fake rivet, but this is more of a mid-19th century style still. There's some machining going on here with the rivets. This has a unique neck. It's a very tall neck, unlike the other hot pot you saw. So this allows us to have a different character. If you put the same wash, the same molasses mixture into this and then into the hot pot, it's not going to be the same product at the end. The neck shape influences it, the rate you cool at, and also the rate you apply the steam. All of those things can influence the character of the product. Of course, the biggest influencer is in fermentation. So at the very start, we can manipulate what goes on there. But this one, we treat it with care, but it can take a beating. It's been going for every day for so long. It started long before I joined the distillery. I've been there almost 23 years, and it's still going. So when you come to the distillery, have a look out for this one. It's very visible. It's in the center of that pot still area that if you get a chance, you can walk through.
And Don, tell us about this one, because a lot of people talk about the Rockley still in Barbados, and actually this is a Rockley still, and there's something's happening about the Rockley.
Well, right, so there's not much to tell beyond to see it, but you can see the style of rivets, if the picture is clear, is actually quite different from the last one you saw. They're not in any structure, and if you're very close up, they're not even in a straight line. We have this sitting on the grass for a long time, not sure how to really get it back into operation. We were thinking, okay, is it something for a museum? Is it something to start up again? Is it something to use as a showpiece? And finally we decided, you know what, I think we owe it to the country to try it again to see what product we can make from it. So it's now in the early stages of being assessed to determine what's needed to be done to repair it and to get it back to Barbados. It has left Barbados, that's the first step. So the next picture will show, oh, okay. There was something on the ground here, I'm not sure what, but this is the Rockley, and we have decided, as I said, it's now in France, it's going to be assessed. We've done thickness checks on the copper, it is thick enough to withstand wash and a long distillation. So we're confident that once we can repair any leaks, we can fit a new neck, we can recondition the valves and the doors, we can apply more nozzles to be able to apply heat and put in wash. So there's a bit of work to do, but we're confident we can get it to work. Time frame, I have no idea, we'll see. Maybe hopefully next year by the same time I can have an update for you to tell you, well, okay, it's on the way back or it's in Barbados already.
You can see on the left, this is a little movie we did, because when you have a still, you need minimum 3 millimeter. So we were like so nervous looking at this old still. Remember, we have like these pot still surgeons, you know, and they still do everything by hand. And you can see here Gaylor, this incredible guy, and he's checking. And you know, he's checking this still, and you're gonna know what he says is gonna be life or death of this still, as far as distilling is concerned. A new still is usually 3 to 4 millimeters. The thinnest we have is 3.5 millimeters. On the top, it's almost a centimeter thick. In the old days, they were not kidding, you know, when they were making a still, I can tell you that. And as you can see, you know, Don was explaining to you, you see the hand-beaten rivets at the bottom. So we think, Don and I, right, from what we saw last week, that this at one point will make rum again. It was making rum late 1700s, early 1800s, and we're going to fix that.
And if you're curious what he's doing, he's basically applying an ultrasonic meter. He put on a gel, the same thing you might get at your physiotherapist, and that would let you know the thickness of the metal. So all the checks they did, we are quite happy with what we saw.
Don, real quickly, because I know we're caught with time. It's one of the little secrets the guys didn't want to share. Now you're sharing, and I think it's wonderful.
I think you need to taste the last one. Yeah, and there's a lot more. The difference between that number 2 and number 3 is the ester content. It's a lot more, and the reason for this is this guy, as I said, Dario, he's looking after the yeast. We're actually working on our own yeast culture. And that is responsible for getting more body. You know, it really converts those sugar elements in the molasses. The organic compounds formed. The flavor profile is very intense. We run it on the hot pot twice. And what you have there is a very different product from what was going on at West Indies Rum in recent times, but it's more recapturing what we used to do many years ago. And we've confirmed this with our archives. So this will be more the feature of what you see from West Indies Rum in the near future. A very aged, full body product. Again, it can also be a flavor element in our standard blends. But of the other 3, number 2, number 3, and number 4, this has the highest likelihood to be a finished product in its own right.
So here, 1,000 ester content. So as you can see, it's huge. Just have a little sip on your palate. It's going to take a long way. It is a blending element at 1,000. I know some people like to sit in a concert in front of the speaker when you're young and a teenager. That would be that type of volume you get in your palate. So it's a concept, but I don't know if you agree, but I think it's so precise. It's so well made. And Barbados used to work on its own yeast. So I'm proud to say that the distillery, again, is making its own yeast culture, his own bacteria culture. You know, this is something that we've been dreaming about for many years, and it's happening again. So remember, we said it's a family reunion. We tell you what's happening. We're able to do things like this. I have a little secret to tell you. You know, Jamaica, the law, you cannot export higher than 1,600 because there's so much know-how. We can make up to 5,000 at Long Pond, and it's the same case in Barbados. Yet the taste profile is very different. It's 2 different cultures. And, you know, we don't call that a muck pit. It's a nursery. It's a very different process. The distillery used to have this know-how, and we're just going back to it. So we wanted, you're the first ones to taste this in the world, really, beside our technical team. Again, think about it, these are these very specific elements that help us make beautiful rums when they go into blends and different things. So
one point to note on this is, again, barrel proof. If you want to taste or experience a bit more of the intensity, get some water, maybe in a separate glass, and dilute it down towards 20%. You'll find the nose and the taste are different when you bring the proof down. I mean, I know people in Germany, I understand, like it at a higher proof, but to experience that aroma a bit more, dilute it a bit and see what happens.
I don't know if you agree, but you got that pineapple, ripe pineapple. You know, if you get just a little sip, you can even dilute with a little saliva, and you'll see it will blossom out on your palate. Again, one of the ingredients. Just some historical documents, just to finish off. You know, we have, so for the super geeks, there's rum marks in Jamaica. Just want you to know we have in the archives rum marks, which are special recipes of rum that were made, very technical rums, like what you just tasted. These are the archives from West Indies Rum Distillery, and you'll see one of the rum marks. You know that some of the rum marks that we're digging out from our archives. You see here, same thing, right on.
Dario and Terry standing over one of the wooden fermenters where we do the fermentation for the high ester rum. They're a great team together. I try not to interfere with what they're doing. but I trust what they do.
And then here you can see something real quickly. When you do this very beautiful fermentation, you need wooden fermenters. Why? Because in the wood lives this beautiful bacteria and especially yeast. That, it's like a baker having a specific yeast that develops. So this is a picture of the distillery in the 1960s that you can see these very nice fermenters. And then they were all wood, and then they rotted out, they were replaced by metal. And the team and I, we decided to reintroduce these are exotic cedar like it used to be in Barbados. So I'm very proud to tell you that these are making rum again, and that's why you can taste this type of very intense rum that go into blends and allow to do the quality of products that you have in the first rum that we talked about. So we tried to do a little review about everything. Don, thank you so much.
My pleasure, and I know time is short, but I'm here for another 2 days. If you see us at the plantation stand, I'm happy to answer any questions anyone has. I can give you my card, you can give me a call even after. And as I said, come to Barbados. That's the best advice I can give you for today.
Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you so much. We promise you that we'll keep doing this if you like it. We enjoy it, sharing it, and every year you'll see what happens. As we speak, we are replacing one of the main elements of a column. So all these rums will keep pouring out, and at the end of the day, we think life is much too short to drink bad rum. So that's why we work hard like this. Thank you
one
so
thing from
much.
me, if I see any of you outside and I don't recognize you, I really couldn't see any of you right now. The light's in my eyes, so just remind me you were at the session, and I'll be willing to say hi. But right now, the faces are nothing. The lights are too bright.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.